Coming up on the Angle Show today, we're talking about a WWE new signing potentially being announced or revealed soon. Also, Jeff Hardy update. What is happening with him? Is he coming back to the ring? And we're going to talk about Team 3D and a huge update on their possible reunion. And it's all coming up right here on the Angle Show. All right, guys. So we're going to kick things off with Team 3D. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but obviously we have been covering the story with Team 3D possibly reuniting. Devon Dudley was released by the WWE not that long ago. And if you're subscribed to this channel, then I did provide that update to you. But now Bully Ray was talking about this in a new interview with Chris Van Vliet. And he basically said on the possibility of reuniting with Devon. Physically, I don't think so because I don't think Devon can do it anymore. We've had the conversation, and for the world to know, because people on social media take things out of context and run with shit, it's ridiculous. Me and Devon have been like this tight since day one. There has never been an issue with me and Devon. All the shit that you like to run with, these clickbait headlines, off. And yeah, he said there's no heat whatsoever. There's no issues between them, but obviously Devon and Bully probably more than likely will not be reuniting. I don't want to spend too much time on this story, but I do want to make it very clear that when Devon Dudley was, released from WWE, there wasn't anything that immediately said Devon and Bully Ray were going to be reuniting. Obviously, they both have their own wrestling schools, and there's a lot of things that they could do outside of wrestling. They could also do things in wrestling together without them physically having to do it. So just kind of want to point that out there. You never know what happens in wrestling. Never say never. You never know. But I'll be paying attention to this because, hey, for one last run, I do think it would be pretty damn sweet. With that being said, I want to turn our attention to Jeff Hardy. Matt Hardy actually offered a really big update on Jeff Hardy on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast. And Matt Hardy actually said a lot in detail. If you guys don't listen to this podcast, I highly recommend that you do it. Matt Hardy is pretty much an open book in regards to this. And he kind of started off really quickly. He started off talking about the rehab portion of things. So the first thing Jeff did whenever he got the opportunity, he traveled to Florida and he stayed 90 days and it did a extensive rehabilitation stint. Really, really intense work on himself. And then even after that ended, those 90 days, he was doing outpatient where he was going every week. He probably did about 170 days, I would say altogether, when it was said and done, of treatment on himself being there and trying to rehabilitate himself and get to the bottom of this. Why do we have issues? What causes these? How can we correct this? How can we change this? My brother, obviously, people who know him for many years, has had so many addiction problems through the years, but he's never been this specific and never in detail tried to work it through so much. Like, he really committed himself to this. So obviously he talks a little bit about the change that he saw in Jeff Hardy, mentioning that Jeff Hardy did a lot to get clean, and a little bit more beyond than what he was actually supposed to do. And then he talked about Jeff Hardy's potential return. He says, so many people say, oh my God, I just smell Jeff Hardy coming back. Dude, what hasn't been talked about? Will it happen? I mean, maybe. Will it happen? Maybe not. I don't know. But I mean, that isn't something that has been talked about at all at this point. So in regards to Jeff Hardy making a WWE return, Jeff Hardy making an AEW return, the likelihood of it at this moment in time is very unlikely. And the reason being for that is because it hasn't necessarily been discussed. Now, if you've been paying attention to AEW and what they've been doing with Matt Hardy as of late, he has completely gone away from the Jeff Hardy Team Extreme type of thing. And so obviously when AEW decided to pull the plug of having references to both, they obviously put Matt Hardy with Ethan Page, and they've actually been doing a really good job by telling a story there. But the point that I'm trying to make is, in a way, they've almost kind of distanced Matt Hardy from the Jeff Hardy situation. Now, whether Jeff Hardy actually comes back or not, only time will tell. But it just seems like AEW is pretty much done exploring that option. I think once Jeff Hardy is clean, if he does become clean to the point where there's no risk, there's no concerns, and obviously he's healthy, and nobody could, have any issue with this, like maybe at that point, that's when AEW decides, hey, we'll bring back Jeff Hardy. But as of right now, it doesn't seem like that's something that's being discussed. But I do want to point out as well, he is still shown on the AEW roster. So technically speaking, it doesn't look like Jeff Hardy was released or anything like that. And keep in mind, Tony Khan at one point did say he would be there along the way to help out Jeff Hardy in any way possible, and it seems like that seems to be pretty accurate. Guys, we're talking about Jay White. This is some pretty extremely exciting news. I'm actually really excited about this. So for those who don't know, Super J Cast, which is a New Japan Pro Wrestling podcast on the Voices of Wrestling Network, hosted by Damon McDonald. And this podcast is actually really cool. There's a lot of cool things that you can learn about from New Japan, especially when big things are, being implemented or big changes. They put out a tweet, for what it's worth, and this is pure speculation, but everyone I've spoken to seems convinced that Jay White is going to WWE. Now, there's been a lot of things floating around. Obviously, WWE has yet to confirm this. Obviously, no other people have come out and officially confirmed that Jay White is signed to the WWE. However, there is this major belief that Jay White is in fact headed to WWE, and there seems to be a lot of speculation that Jay White would be debuting at WrestleMania or after WrestleMania. Now, it's going to be really interesting to see how Jay White is brought into WWE if he is in fact going to the WWE. I also want to talk about the length of contract and the type of money that Jay White would be getting, because there has been so much speculation about Jay White going to WWE, but I don't see any reporting or anything that signifies what he could be getting paid or what type of value WWE sees in him. Now, my best guess is that Jay White is going to be brought in very similarly to the way AJ Styles was brought in. From a monetary perspective, from a debut perspective, I think Jay White, AJ Styles are kind of similar in that regard. Obviously, people know who Jay White is, but how familiar is the WWE audience with Jay White? If you're doing WrestleMania or the night after WrestleMania, the week after WrestleMania, those shows bringing in Jay White will garnish big reactions. If you're doing it in a regular show, maybe not. So I think the situation that WWE's got to be very careful with is making sure they bring in Jay White and make sure it looks like he's a big deal. As far as people saying that he's expected to go to NXT, I have not heard of this. I have not seen anything that suggests that Jay White would be going to NXT. I think that's very, very silly. But who knows? The idea that Jay White is going to WWE actually sounds very legitimate as well, because of the fact that throughout the last month or so when we've been talking about Jay White, all signs led to Jay White going to WWE, and it would make sense by living in the United States. So we'll see how all of this goes down, but this would be another key signing for WWE. So WWE bringing in Jay White would be pretty massive. Probably going to pay him very well. I would expect that he's going to get a somewhat big contract. And obviously, as he grows with the WWE universe, more money could be in his plans. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to keep you guys updated along the way with everything that's happening in pro wrestling. All the links are in the description if you guys want to join the community. And of course, I appreciate you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you next time.